My name is Matthew, and I run my own language school in Japan. I've been here 18 years, and I'm originally from a very violent council estate in a small town in Ireland. And I believe we were once upon a time, the murder capital of Europe, I think. And I quit school at a young age. I'm an early school leaver. I quit when I was 13, simply because I was walking home one day and somebody put a knife to my throat. And I thought, maybe I don't need to go to school anymore. So survival instincts kicked in and I kind of stopped going to school. And actually in that neighborhood, it was quite common for kids to not go to school. And being a goth on a council estate certainly didn't help. And I kind of got lost for a while. Everybody was on like a mainstream track and I kind of went a roundabout way. And to have the life that I have now actually is quite surreal because considering where I've come from to where I am today, it's quite a miracle, to be honest. Eventually, I found my way into a second chance education program, and I was able to do state exams, and you get state points that you can apply to university. And I kind of fell into art school because art school is easy to get in with a portfolio. So I built a portfolio, I got my points, and I got into art school, and it got me actually out of my town that I grew up in. And I moved to the west of Ireland, and I ended up getting a degree in fine art. Didn't really like art school at all, actually. They don't actually teach you art school. They don't teach you art in art school. They teach you a thing called critical theory, where it's kind of like covert Marxist ideas over and over again in the disguise of art. So I really had a miserable time because it just wasn't what I expected. But it gave me a degree, and that got me out of the country into Japan. I applied for a job with government, actually. It's a teaching position. And while I was in Japan and teaching English, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I always thought I wanted to work in university, like to kind of teach humanities. And the only way you do that is if you have a master's degree. And I thought, okay, now is the right time to do it. So I signed up to the Open University, actually. And I got my master's. I worked full-time and studied full-time. I was doing my thesis on the train every day. And I got it. I got myself a distinction in art history. So to come from where I come from to get that is just amazing to me. I'm very grateful for it. But the supervisor in that final year, this was 2015, I should say, sorry. I graduated with my master's 2015, and then 2 years later, the supervisor of that course suddenly contacted me, and she mentioned she created a PhD program in Southampton, Solent. Wasn't interested in a PhD, didn't care, didn't have the time, didn't have the money, and I refused. I said, sorry, not interested. And then she kept contacting me for about 3 months, and it was like all Skype calls. She would say nice things about my work. She would like sweet talk me really, and kind of very pushy, aggressive marketing kind of campaign to get me to do it. And she brought up Brexit. Brexit was happening at the time. And she mentioned if I don't get in now, I'll have to pay international fees or something. It was very pressured. And I just thought, okay, fine, I'll do it. It was like 3 months of this. But it wasn't just me, by the way. It was about 6 other people in different universities that she kind of plucked out for this experiment. So it wasn't just me. And that's kind of how it starts in 2017. Difficult coming up with the research topic, actually, because I wasn't clear what practice-based research meant. The whole thing is where you have to make a body of artworks to investigate a topic. And I couldn't quite figure out what I wanted to do. And it was taking quite a long time, but I was told that's the process. It's a very slow process. You're supposed to take your time with it. And eventually I kind of hit upon the idea that, being a foreigner in a foreign land is not very pleasant. Topic is about being a foreigner in a foreign land, because the longer I lived in Japan, the more uncomfortable it got, because it's a very homogenous country. It's very closed off. They're quite suspicious of foreign people. And I was really surprised by some of the reactions by some people. It's like, it is quite racist at times. And I thought, okay, that's an interesting topic. Let's play with that. Let's see what I could do with that. And I found a man called Lafcadio Hearn. He is an Anglo-Irish writer that moved to Japan in 1890 to teach English. And he settled down here, and he's quite famous for translating Japanese culture back into the West. So that's kind of how his name is known. And he's known here for his ghost stories. I thought he was very intriguing because he's an Irishman. moved to Japan to teach English. 100 years later, I'm an Irishman teaching English in Japan. So I thought, I'll use him as a topic. So that really drove the research. It was partly about his life and partly about my own experiences as a foreigner in Japan, basically. How does it feel to be a foreigner in a foreign land? I divide my time in Solent as pre-Scruton and post-Scruton. So I gave everybody in my study group a book called Fools, Frauds, and Firebrands around January 2023. Everything before that wasn't actually that bad. It's everything afterwards that became really terrible. When I first started at Solent, the first year, nothing really happened. There was one maybe rabid, they used to be called social justice warriors. This was before woke. There was one of those that would keep picking on me because I was the only male in the group, and she would keep picking on me about my white privilege and why am I in Japan and am I colonizing Japan, and just very strange things that didn't make any sense to me. But she quit soon after that, and then it evened out. It was actually quite pleasant. It was mild. It wasn't as vicious as it could have been. And I genuinely liked my study group. They were good people. They were good artists, and we had a great relationship. Really, nothing really was strange. And then around the summer of 2022, I had a breakthrough in my research and I wanted to share with my supervisor. And she kind of shifted against me suddenly because my research was about science, the Victorian period. I'm very much pro-science, and she really does not like science and does not like the Victorian period. And anything to do with that, she really resists. So I thought her attitude was strange because, why does it matter if I'm looking at the Victorian period? What has that got to do with anything? And I think she realized in that moment I was a lost cause, because you're supposed to problematize the Victorian period and problematize the West and the past and science. I'm celebrating these things and she wants me to tear them down. So that's suddenly where we kind of clashed ideologically. And she realized that I'm a lost cause. I'm not going to be part of, there's a strange cult-like element to these things where you have to do what the supervisor tells you to do. You have to be obedient to her vision. And I found it very uncomfortable. And we would have these seminars every week. Somebody would show up and talk about something. They would be from museum curation or poetry or musicians or something. And they would start talking in the same way about the same thing, that men were bad, white men were bad, science is bad, capitalism is bad, everything about the West is bad. And this was relentless. And I thought, this is so strange. Why are people talking like this? I heard this 25 years ago in art school. It was boring then and it's boring now. And I didn't really care about it at first. It was like background noise. But then after a while, it was so relentless that I had to say something. I had to push back because I was the only man in the group. And they're very much anti-men and anti-white people. So I thought I have to say something at some point. And that's when I started to kind of give them reading materials that were a different flavor. I gave something by Camille Paglia once, but I removed her name from the piece just to see what people would think about it. It was a very pro-men, pro-West speech she gave. That was very reactive. They didn't like that at all. It was very they were ready to come for me until I told them it was by a woman. And then they kind of changed their tune, but they still, she wasn't the right kind of woman, so they kind of rejected it. And I thought, that's strange because she's not even a conservative. Camille Paglia is not right-wing in any way. Then I gave that book by Scruton, and that was the beginning of the end. That's when everything kind of went downhill. I gave it in January 2023. The following seminar was canceled, and the next one. For 4 months, they had been canceled. And I thought that was unusual. That's never happened before. And nobody responded to the book that I gave. So halfway through, I gave a link to a video by Scruton. No reaction. Again, silence. And then we finally got to a seminar 4 months later, and nobody brought up the book. And just before we logged off, I asked everybody, did you read the book that I gave? Total silence. Nobody said anything. It was very awkward. And then the supervisor jumped in and said, we felt it was inappropriate. And then the seminar stopped. And I was like, okay. I didn't really know what to do because they logged off, and I'm sitting there thinking, what just happened? What's inappropriate about a book? No explanation, just we felt it was inappropriate. And I thought, who's we? I don't get it. So when that happened, I really had to think about everything that happened beforehand because it was leading up to that point, actually. Because I had been resisting and questioning people, why are we doing this and not that? I just felt like there was like pulling away from me gradually, and this was the final point, and that was like the end. I sent an email to everybody saying how upset I was and confused, and I didn't know what was inappropriate about it. Nobody contacted me, and I felt like, am I being excommunicated? Is this what it feels like? Is this what happens? 1 month later, somebody from the study group did contact me, and she expressed that she was sad about what happened, and she basically confirmed it was because of the C word, and the C word being conservative. That because I was aligning with conservative thinkers, they were now told not to contact me. That I became some kind of radioactive contaminant. That I was so, like, I don't know, disgusting or dangerous that I had to be distanced from. It was like, that was a stab in my heart, actually, because I liked all those people in that study group. And when I needed help, they all just kind of disappeared. But I understand why they did it, because they're worried about their career. Right? If you go against the supervisor, you will be next on the chopping block. So I understand why they did it, but it still hurts. Just wanted something different because what we were getting was like relentless, almost like brainwashing. It was like the same thing week after week after week after week. And I was patient with it because I thought other people might find that relevant or like it. I didn't like it. I rejected it a long time ago. But I had to say something, and I just thought I'm the only one fighting back. I'm the only one saying anything, and it felt really isolating and just confusing. And you don't have to like him. Just read it, and let's talk about it because that's what we did every week. We would read different materials from different people, and I just thought, well, now it's my turn. I'm reading what you're giving me. Let's read what I'm giving you, and nobody did. It stopped. It just stopped completely. And after the other study member confirmed that it was because of the C word, I filed a complaint immediately because it wasn't acceptable what she did to me. And she essentially coerced me into joining Solent in the first place. And now she excommunicates me because I want to read a book. That to me is not acceptable. So I filed a complaint, didn't go anywhere to protect their own kind. It was dismissed, and I just kind of felt like, okay, I need to take time out because this is too much. This is crazy. So I actually took a year off to kind of figure out what I wanted to do next because I really felt cheated and conned. So yeah, there wasn't any relationship anymore. So after I took a year off, I came back and I got a new supervisor, a Japanese man, which makes sense because I'm living in Japan and I'm writing about Japanese ideas. And he wasn't woke in any way. He was very kind, very nice, very rational. We had differences, but it wasn't severe. It was like he was very positive about everything. And actually, he's the only person I've met in person from Solent. Everyone else has either been email or on screen. He's actually come to Japan to meet me and support me. So he's been wonderful. So it was a really great experience compared to what the previous supervisor. So he salvaged my project with me. We worked really hard. I pushed through and I finished on time. I was always ahead of everybody in my group, by the way. I always did everything as the handbook wanted and never caused any trouble. I'm on record for being a good, hardworking student. There was never any issue until Scruton. So we finished on time. That was September of last year. And before I submitted, I gave my project to as many people as I could to make sure that there were no errors, that it was no spelling mistakes, that they proofread it, that nothing would stand out in the viva. I wanted to be ready. So I gave it to my friends in different disciplines like medicine, law, engineering. I asked them to give it to their friend, someone who doesn't know me, and to make sure it was as objective as possible. And everybody had positive things to say about it. Nobody had anything negative. It was all seeming to go my way. Supervisor signed off on it. He liked it. Co-supervisor signed off on it. I mean, to get to the viva, it has to be of a certain quality. You cannot just jump to a viva. You have to go through so many hoops. So to get to that stage and to have everybody say positive things, I felt I was ready to go. I felt like, okay, this is going to go my way. I'm finally going to finish. It did not happen that way at all. The worst thing you could imagine is what I got. Okay, how do I start with this one? Okay, so my supervisor said that he had a hard time finding examiners. It took him a long time, he said, and I couldn't really figure out why it would be so hard. Um, I got one examiner from Manchester University from the anthropology department, and I got the second one, the internal examiner, who ended up being the problem, was the new dean of the school. And I think his background is in media studies, I'm not sure. So the fact that I'm getting two people that are not in my discipline to examine me was highly unusual. And I felt like, okay, maybe it's going to be a problem. But my supervisor said that these are the two perfect people to examine me. And I trusted him. So I thought, okay, it'll be okay. Um, External examiner was not a problem in the Viva at all. He wasn't aggressive or nasty in any way. He almost seemed like he didn't want to be there, actually. He was just kind of a presence. And I don't know, he was just there. I was told that the external examiner has the bigger weight of the decision. They're the most important person in the Viva. So my focus was on him, whereas the internal examiner was completely in control of everything from the beginning. He very much was in charge, and he would interrupt the external examiner and finish his questions for him. And he was quite nasty, I have to say. So when it began, the first thing I noticed was how po-faced and serious everything was. It was really just like I felt like I was in an interview room in a prison or something, or an inquisition. It was like my shoulders went up and I got really defensive because I thought, why is it this serious? I didn't expect it to be that serious. Nobody told me it would be like that. I had spoken to my friends who had finished their PhDs, and they all said that it's not supposed to be like that at all. Their own experience is totally different. You can crack jokes with the examiners, you can have a bit of levity, but you can still have a challenging viva, which is what I expected and what I wanted. Instead, I got an inquisition. How does it start? It starts with the internal examiner just kept coming at me with this animosity and this almost personal hatred. Like there was something about me specifically that he did not like, and it was relentless. And I thought, this is a bit odd because this doesn't feel normal. My instinct was telling me this is off, this is strange. And within 30 minutes, I asked, is it always this intense? And when I said that, the chair jumped in and convened a break immediately. And they took 5 minutes and they left me with the independent chair. And I was like, what is this about? What is happening? He's like, is it always like this? And he assured me that it's okay, everything's fine. And I just felt like something was off and I couldn't figure out what it was. And then they came back and I thought that would break the tension, but actually it got worse. And the independent chair never came back to help for the rest of the Viva. I was allocated 4 hours. It lasted 90 minutes. And actually, I found out later when I got a subject access request that in his own words, the internal examiner was going to stop the Viva at that moment. When I said, is it this intense? And when they took a break, he was going to stop it there and then. That proves that his attitude towards me from the beginning was not pleasant. There was a lot of animosity. And it was the external examiner that convinced him to continue. So they continued, and it was just pointless. The whole thing was pointless because they weren't listening to anything I was saying. They didn't ask me about my artworks. They didn't ask me about why I did what I did. I didn't even open my thesis. I was holding it in my hands the whole way through. Not once did I open it because they didn't ask me anything about it. They were fixated on me as a person, like being white and being male, being in Japan. I'm colonizing Japan. I need to decolonize myself. White power, white privilege, just this insane stuff that was relentless from this ideologue that just was like so crazy. And I started out really excited and with an open mind and in good faith. I thought it was going to go well. And it just diminished me to nothing. And it was just like, I was in such a state of shock. I couldn't understand what was happening. It made no sense whatsoever. After the whole thing had finished, I filed a subject access request to figure out maybe I can find something that's going on behind the scenes because it doesn't make any sense. And when I got the results, I was quite shocked because it was about 50 pieces of communication, all heavily redacted. Looks like the Epstein files. There's all black bars everywhere. It's really shocked me and angered me and upset me because somebody's saying something about me behind the scenes and I don't know who and I don't know why. I have proof that 24 hours before the viva, the internal examiner was in contact with someone else from the university. They had been gossiping about me 24 hours before it. So that proved to me that seeds are being planted in his head. He's treating me a certain way because he's been given an impression of me from people. And I think his misreading of my own thesis gave him that impression because there isn't an ounce of woke in my thesis. And if you're not with us, you're against us. It's a friend-enemy distinction. When an examiner looks at a piece of work, they're looking for the ideology. They're looking to see if you're obedient, if you're one of them, and I'm not. And I think that built an impression in his head of who I was, and that would explain why it was so hostile. And he just never deviated from that. Even in his own pre-viva comments, it was revise and resubmit. He was never going to deviate from that position. It always seemed like it was a predetermined outcome, whereas the external examiner was going to give me the degree. He read the work and it was worthy of a PhD. So he's up here at the highest level, and the independent chair, the internal examiner, is down here. How is it there can be such a huge discrepancy in the outcome and the external was brought down to this level? Like, what happened at that point? I can't see. There's no evidence. There's communication, but it's like redacted. So I don't know what's happening behind the scenes. It's a hard one. I cannot see myself betraying myself, because what they want me to do is to problematize myself as a racist, as a colonizer, as someone who is stealing Japanese culture. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to reference people that don't need to be referenced. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to bend the knee. I'm not going to swallow the communion wafer. I'm not going to obey the dogma of woke just to keep people satisfied. So if it means I've lost 10 years of my life and 10,000 pounds, so be it. I'm not going to betray myself. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to do it. It's like nothing will change until people stand up and do something. And this is my way of doing something. Like I'm totally powerless in every other way, but I'm going to stand up and say, no, this is not acceptable. You can't treat people like this. It's crazy. It's not fair. So I was ready to give up. Once they dismissed my appeals, I was ready to give up. But I thought, okay, I'm going to try one more thing. I'm going to try Grok. I'm going to try AI. I'm going to ask them, what do they think about this situation? So I gave it my entire situation. I gave all the documents. If I can use the words shocked and disgusted for a machine, that was the reaction. They confirmed that what happened is not normal. And not only that, but the first thing they told me to do was contact the Committee of Academic Freedom. And they gave me the email address of Freddie. So I contacted Freddie, and here I am. The one and only group that will actually help and listen to me is the Committee of Academic Freedom. I tried every media outlet. They didn't care. Freddie is the only one that actually listened to me and gave me the dignity of actually having my say. And I'm forever grateful for that, because he's been very kind and hardworking on my behalf. So I'm very grateful for that. I don't think the way the universities are being run now are going to last beyond the next 5 years. I think they will implode. There's absolutely no way you can run an entire university program on woke. It's not going to last. People are going to reject it. Younger people are going to reject it. I don't think they're going to go to university. It's becoming a very, because of AI, it's becoming redundant. I don't think there's going to be many universities left, really. You cannot run a program on woke. It's just not going to happen. What can we do? We can stand up and say no more. Nothing will change until people stand up. You have to stand up and say, this is not right. You can't wait for other people to do it. You can't complain about it. You have to put yourself forward and say enough is enough. And that's what I'm doing now. And it may not amount to anything, but at least having my story out there and having people know what's going on behind the scenes, because they rely on people not knowing. They live in a cloistered environment and they don't want eyes on them. They don't want a light shining on them. And this is my way of doing something. You have to stand up and say enough is enough. No more.